Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Comic Book Lowdown. I'm Wellington, and today I'm going to be reviewing Spider-Man Reign. I just got this on Friday for Black Friday sales, and I just finished reading it. This is, of course, the first time I've read it, and so these are my initial thoughts of the book, but it's still review all the same. I'm going to try not to have too many spoilers, or I'm going to try not to have any spoilers, but no promises. There might be some spoilers, and if I will spoil anything, I'll say spoiler alert first for those of you who haven't read Spider-Man Reign. But my initial thoughts on this is that it's a pretty good story. Spider-Man is my favorite character. Sometimes I battle with that in my head, but overall, he is my favorite superhero character, my favorite comic book character of all time. And so I definitely get emotionally attached with him in this story, especially because Peter Parker, throughout the majority of the story, is very much a broken old man. You know, this takes place in the future, so everybody's old. Peter Parker's old. All the villains are old, and pretty much in this story, superheroes or masked anybody. Masks are illegal in New York now, and they're illegal because they don't. The Mayor Waters is his name, Mayor Waters. He doesn't want any super terrorist to affect the city, to harm the city, harm the citizens, and all that stuff. So he bans masks. Therefore, Spider-Man can't be Spider-Man. Also, the supervillains can't be the supervillains either. But they take it even to a further state, and by building this type of dome around the city, where they call it the Web Initiative or the Web System or something like that, but it's the Web, and pretty much it domes the entire city, where nobody can leave and nobody can enter. So they're pretty much trading all their freedoms away for a feeling of security, and at the same time they have a type of military police force called the Reign, hence Spider-Man Reign. The Reign is, again, military police force that enforces all the laws to an extreme, and they use extreme punishment, extreme brutality towards citizens, whether they be old, whether they be kids. It doesn't really matter. And so the main characters that you follow throughout this story, of course, Peter Parker and a little girl. Her name is Susie Baker, and that's her last name, right? Yeah, Susie Baker. So Susie Baker, there's a theme running with her in her story arc where all she does is run away from her problems. You have a sense that she's always on her own because she's always in abandoned alleyways doing her own thing and running away from all her problems, and she gets in a lot of trouble, and so she runs away from all those troubles, and that's her main thing, is that she thinks that, well, I can run faster than anybody, and as long as I can outrun anybody else, I'll be fine. So that takes a main stage throughout her story arc, and it develops later on to where she becomes a different person and a better person out of the situations that she gets put in. And now Peter's story arc is a lot different, where he, of course, is an old man. He gets fired from his job as he works for a wedding catering company. I'm thinking he messes up the a person's wedding, and so the people say that they're not going to pay him, and so that's already the second time in 2 weeks that he's messed up a wedding. So the company fires him. So now he has no job, and he's all alone. But he feels like he's always having these hallucinations, pretty much, that Mary Jane is always there. She never says anything to him, but he always carries conversations with her, and it's very sad, especially if you've read anything where, him and Mary Jane interact. They have a good interaction with each other, and it's very lively, their conversations that they have with each other. And this, it's just very sad, just seeing Peter as an old man, just talking to thin air pretty much. And you never even see Mary Jane's face when he's hallucinating her, because she's not really there, and she never smiles and never says anything, and he's always having dreams about her, and it's very sad the way things play out. This is a very sad book, by the way. But so all that is sad, and J. Jonah Jameson comes by. Nobody's seen him or heard from him in a while because he's been up in the mountains, but now he comes by and he's causing all kinds of ruckus around the city. Now he's an activist for Spider-Man. He wants Spider-Man to come out of retirement, and I don't know if this is a spoiler, but if it is, I'll say spoiler alert. He finds out Peter Parker is Spider-Man. When he comes to Peter's apartment, he gives Peter an old camera that he left behind at the Daily Bugle, and wrapping the camera is a mask, the black suit Spider-Man mask. And so when you first see pretty much Peter Parker in action as Spider-Man, he's not really completely Spider-Man. At this point, he has a broken wrist or a broken arm. He's got a cast on his arm, and he's only in his boxers, socks, and the black mask. And he pretty much saves J. Jonah Jameson's life at that point. So after that, things continue to fall into place, and just the story seems to go on, and you see that J. Jonah Jameson is he's recruiting all these street kids, and he's not holding them, but he's inviting them to an abandoned church where he pretty much spreads the word of, we need to rise up again and take the city back because we need to stop being so scared. And pretty much he's trying to start a revolt, or trying to get the spirits back up in the youth, because the adults that can do anything aren't going to do anything because they're either too scared or they just don't want to. And the old people who remember the times of Spider-Man and him saving the day and when they were brave, they're too old and they can't do anything. And because the rain is just so overbearing against them. They're overbearing against the kids, and they're especially overbearing against the elderly. And so Jameson's trying to build up a spirit in the kids so they can finally do something. And they do. They cause a panic in the mainstream industry, or not industry, but the news. They hack the news, and so J. Jonah Jameson is broadcasted all throughout New York City on every channel of him telling the city to rise up again. And at that time, also newspapers and everything like this are showing that Spider-Man had been spotted again, and that brings up the attention of the Hypno Hustler. And of course the Hypno Hustler is also going to be old at this time, and once a villain, now he's inspired by Spider-Man. He wants to help, so he tries to use his hypnotic powers against the Rain. Unfortunately, where they were working, they ended up failing, and he does get killed very quickly in public in front of everybody. And at this point is when people start seeing what the Rain actually is and what they actually do. And so there's a big crowd that forms, and then just mayhem ensues. because some of the Mayor Waters let out some of the old supervillains. He let out the Sinner Six, and so Kraven the Hunter, Scorpion, Mysterio, Sandman, Electro, and in these panels you don't see him, but Hydra Man is also let loose. But in this panel you only see 5 of those villains, and Kraven the Hunter stabs a kid right through his stomach, and it's very brutal. This is not this book is not for your kids. This is an adult book. It deals with a lot of adult themes, and it has adult language in it, or at least bleeped out, but still, keep it for the adults or anybody, older. But back to the story, and this is where you first see Spider-Man in full costume, but black costume, and he's in action, and he just starts doing his best. He starts doing his best and fighting off all the super terrorists is what they're called. And eventually they start getting the better of him, and Dr. Octopus saves him, but not Dr. Octopus, but the Dr. Octopus arms. They're still attached to his corpse, but Otto Octavius is actually dead. He's been dead for a long time, and they show him he's just rotting because he's been dead for so long, but his arms are still functional, and they still move, and they look to finally do Otto Octavius's last wish, and that's to find Peter Parker and to inspire him to be Spider-Man again in his red and blue suit. And so that's what they do. They take him to a graveyard. This is all full of spoilers, actually. They take him to the graveyard where he sees the tombstones of Mary Jane, Aunt May, and Uncle Ben all together, and there's a very emotional scene at that point. And then we leave Peter for a while. We go back to Susie, and she decides, after running for so long, she decides that she needs to make a stand for herself. And at this point, you start seeing the real villain of this whole thing, and that's Mayor Waters' assistant. His name is Eddie Sachs, and he turns out to be Venom. So now Venom is the main villain on all of this. He's behind the whole Web initiative, and I'm sorry, that is a huge spoiler, but I'll put in the title spoilers, so just, you've been warned by the title, you've been warned throughout this video. If you're still watching at this point and haven't read and don't want to be spoiled, your fault. But anyway, so Venom's the main villain in this. He's behind the whole Web system, the whole Web idea to shelter the city, and what he wants to do and what he does is that he spawns just hundreds of Venom symbiotes throughout the city, and they just start feeding on the citizens and feeding and just terrorizing everybody. And so while they're terrorizing everybody, that's when Susie finally gets the courage to stand up for herself, and then she gets a group of people, and they find a bell, and they find out that bells hurt the symbiotes, so they travel around with a bell so the symbiotes don't come near them, and they face off against a squad of Rain officers, and leading them is the Sandman. And another spoiler right here, through some back and forth, we find out that Susie Baker is the Sandman's daughter, and she has a power of her own where she turns herself into cement. Instead of sand, she cements herself, and when she does so, the Rain just start tearing her down with bullets. They start shooting her, and Sandman is in his head, he's like, I'm pretty sure that's my daughter, I haven't seen her in so long, so he starts fighting off the rain, and he tries to protect Susie, but unfortunately, he's not quick enough and he's not efficient enough. And through some emotional scenes, she finally does die, and it's very sad. But that's when Sandman figures out what he needs to do, and in the meantime, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, he finally realizes that it's his responsibility to fix the city now. It's time for him to own it, own the responsibility again, and be Peter Parker, Spider-Man again. To stop being scared, and he builds up the courage again, and he feels like this is his last fight, that after this he's going to be with Mary Jane, he's going to be with Aunt May, he's going to be with Uncle Ben in death, and he's going to finally be happy. And this is a lot different type of Spider-Man now, because this is a Spider-Man with no fear. He's got nothing to worry about anymore. All he's doing is fighting until the end, and that's what he's pretty much doing. And so he takes on all these villains one by one for the most part, besides Electro and Hydro Man, where they team up. And even Peter Parker is very sad throughout this, just as Peter Parker. But whenever he puts on the mask and the costume, he's Spider-Man. He cracks jokes and he's funny again. And so they put him in his character, but you still get that feeling of him being very different. And one part that you really feel that in is what he does to Scorpion, where he actually just throws him out of a building, stories and stories high, and Scorpion just falls to his death. So that's where I really saw this Spider-Man as a different Spider-Man. And he then goes on to defeat Mysterio. He then goes on to defeat Kraven, and he finally ends up facing off with Venom. And he leads the fight away. He ends up fighting Venom, and he has to fight all the other symbiotes as well. So he leads the fight all the way to the roof of this tall building, this tower that hosts the web system, and he leads it all the way up to there, where he then fights off these the symbiotes and Venom, and he's pretty much like, this is it, this is my last fight, and I'm not doing this for the citizens anymore. I'm doing this for Mary Jane, because I know she wants me to fight, and after this I'm gonna see her. So while he's fighting, he's telling this one joke, and it hits you pretty hard, the joke, because it's just a silly joke, but he's struggling to say it because he's just getting beat up by all the symbiotes and Venom, and he's still getting his shots in, but it looks very grim for him. But he finishes the joke, which is just on another level. On the surface, it's just him being silly, but on another level, it's just very emotional to the scene. And he pretty much sees that this is going to be it, and then all of a sudden the Sandman comes up and he has to handle some business, and he has a bomb, because all the supervillains had bombs put into them that if they did anything wrong, Mayor Waters would detonate the bomb, and it would pretty much just kill whichever supervillain was doing the bad doing that was not acceptable for Mayor Waters and pretty much Venom's grand scheme. So after that, after Susie died, Sandman had a realization that he needed to face the music and do what needed to be done for what was right, like his daughter did, and for once he was going to do good, and that good was going to be in helping Spider-Man. So he pretty much takes the detonator out of him. I mean, he's made out of sand, so all it was is that Spider-Man had to pull it out pretty much, and Spider-Man used it to his advantage. He pretty much blew up the entire building with him on it. He blew up the whole building, just collapsed, and Venom, Sandman, and all the other symbiotes, they died with it. And you never know how, but somehow Peter Parker survived, and so did J. Jonah Jameson. And so at the end of the story, J. Jonah Jameson's on his new TV network, or not his new, he's on Daily Bugle News, which is the main thing that goes on throughout this. But now he's running it, and he's the host, and he's talking on it again. And now the web is non-existent, and everything is like back to the way it was, how a city should be. And Peter Parker, he's still Peter Parker, and he's still Spider-Man. And he says that when it's his time, and he'll see Mary Jane again. But right now, he still has his responsibilities to do, and that's where it ends. And he's pretty much just stopping an average mugging, just like any other day. So, all in all, I love this story. Actually, just talking about it after reading it makes it that much better. Just talking about it out loud, so I could get all the emotions straight, and really dig into what I like about this. What I didn't care for is the art in some scenes. In some panels of this, the art is not too great. But it is a very gritty style, and this is where I was going to be making my comparisons. I said in another video. My last video was on The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, and so this story is very much the same concept as that story, about an older man coming back and doing pretty much a young man's job and succeeding. And so this is very much alike in that way, and also in the delivery, as there's very gritty art style in this. The art is very dark, and there are some panels in this that are very Miller-esque. The Kingpin is drawn in this as just like an old flabby guy now, and he's very Miller-esque. And so I really, that panel really made me think about Miller and his art. But in some places the art isn't too consistent. But being besides the point, the story is great, and I recommend it highly. I highly recommend this. So if you get the chance, if you haven't read it, and if you don't mind that I spoiled everything for you in this book, pretty much told you everything that happens, but you want to read it for yourself, definitely pick this up. It's only $14.99 in soft trade paperback version of it. The hardback version is just another $5. So if you want to get the hardback, $5 more and you got it, and you got a great story that covers 4 books. It's very thin though. It's a very quick read. I could have finished this maybe a day or 2 ago, but I was just doing some other things. But so yeah, that's my review on Spider-Man Reign. What can I say? Great book. What can I say that I haven't already said? So, great book. Recommend it. And, just keep reading. If you like my reviews, again, subscribe, comment, like my videos, whatever. I won't mind it. And I know you guys won't mind it. So, do that. But better yet, just keep watching. and I'll see you guys next time on the Comic Book Lowdown.